Hey everyone, this is GeoWill from LaughMan Productions Squared, and we are back to work on the devlog 10 for Space Crusade. I kind of told a little bit of a fib earlier when I said that we're going to work on the audio on the next one. Well, technically we're still recording on the same day as the last recording session, so technically it isn't a fib, while it is at the same time. But we're going to continue working on the code, and then the next one, which will be in the next day or so, then we'll work on the audio then. I don't want to work on that right now because I'm going to be working on the code now, and also I don't have enough room to put my keyboard up at the moment because I got tons of crap all around the computer desk here. So that, and I don't have very much space left on my drive. The space needed to record for working on FL Studio and the music and all that is actually a little bit higher. It's about 50 gigabytes per hour as opposed to about 35 to 40 gigabytes an hour for the code. Plus another 3 to 4 gigabytes total for the audio. So it don't have enough space to do that at the moment, but we have enough to go for about an hour and a half, 2 hours on the coding. So what I started to do was work on the blackjack stuff. I got as far as I'll show you here. I got as far as making the general thing here. We got the setup CEI, and then I went there and showed you how I showed on the last recording session making the card thing. How to making this thing here. So what hadn't been shown was just doing the rest of the code for the blackjack thing, which is what we're getting into now. So what I went ahead and one thing I ran into, or rather thought about, was this use of bContinue. The bContinue is used up on the loop for the main loop for the casino games. And I was thinking about that, and I went and checked. So the casino game up there says if not bContinue, then that's what the loop goes on. And what we're using here is if it's true. So I thought, wait a second here, it's kind of incidentally genius, because what happens is that when we go through here, in order to break these loops, we're using bContinue false, which is what it has to be for the casino loop to continue. If the casino loop is true, then that breaks the loop. So I was thinking, wait a second here, and unintentionally did something pretty clever by saying, okay, these are false to break this loop, but it needs to be false to continue the casino loop, so everything pans out even though we're using the same variable for two different loops. That's not something you can do with eyes unless you reverse. Well, it still wouldn't work for the for loops, because even if you reverse the way in which you deal with the loop, it's still going to be going down to 0, and you'd have to go, and one's going up, one's going down, and they both kind of clash together. You get stuck in an infinite loop situation. So this is really, I think, probably the only type of loop that you can do this on. But anyway, all that rambling out of the way. So we have the, I also made a new loop, thing here called bContinue 3, because we're going to need to put that inside of this else. Because what we're doing is essentially doing a loop for the player to choose different actions for what will happen. That's going to happen after you set up the first two cards for both the player and all the AIs. So here's what we're going to do. We'll work on this, and we'll do some of the basic starting AI, and you'll see how this will work. So what we're going to do now is this is just a thing here to say insert the cards into the player hand. I started to think about this, and I realized that we'd have to change. That's where I was over here. Change the betting, because we'd have to be able to tell the player what the cards he has are, and have different options for betting than what is up here in the other bet function I made. So this is more just kind of the first two cards that you send over, or will be sending over, because that's the only time the bet happens is then. Although in all honesty, I think the bet's supposed to happen before you get the cards. It's kind of like an ante in poker. It's like a fee that you pay to get into the game. But in this case, we're going to say, okay, it's in the future, so the rules have changed. So you get your 2 cards, and then you can place your bet based on what those cards are. So we're taking some creative license here. Being in the future, things should be a bit different, and not exactly the same. Some things more than others, like for example, the 4 wheels on slots, or the the extra numbers for the roulette. But for this, we're just going to make a small change. Although I may go back through and later on might add in some other larger changes. Maybe like being able to bet throughout the process. But we'll see what happens. First we need to just get the rest of it in now. And then we can go in and tweak it. So we need to insert the cards now into the player hand vector. So it's essentially what we're doing, same as what we're doing down there with the slots. We just need to take the values we have here, or rather when we're doing the card thing for the card vector. So we have the randoms here, and we need to take the those values and use them in the to put those specific cards into the hand. So player hand was, and I had to look this up and then I took a break and forgot about it, is SCP hand. That makes sense. SCP, S Station Casino Player Hand. SCP hand dot. Well, first we got to make sure it's empty. So if I was actually reading up on some Java stuff earlier, because I'm applying for a bunch of jobs, trying to find one in the software development field, and there's been going for Java, C#, and C++. But it's interesting because Java actually has deprecated vectors for some reason. I'm not sure why. I guess Java's too high and mighty for vectors or something. This really struck me as odd. Vectors are really a strong type in C# and C++, and Java is supposed to be really similar to it, but C++ that is. But semantically, I think is the plural term for all encompassing term for syntax. So we have that. Now we have to do the SCP hand dot pushback. Basically the same thing we did on the other one. Then we're just gonna go the cards, and then SCC deck. Dot at rint1, and scp hand dot push back scc deck Alright, now what we also have to do, though, is we have to take those cards out of the deck. True. So we have to make sure that that's another thing we have to check out here. We have to make sure that the deck has at least 5 cards times the number of players. Well, no, 2 cards times the number of players. Well, we'll go 5 because 5 is the max you can have without going bust. You're probably going to go bust before then, and even that's the maximum number of cards you can have. Period. If you get to 5 and you don't go bust, then you win. So that'd be the nut. So let's see. Check to make sure that the deck has enough cards to play the game. Calculate the number of cards by cards required by multiplying the number of players by 5, as 5 cards is the max that any player may have. So, if scdv10.size is less than players dot size plus 1, because you have to include the you have to go plus 1 because that's including the player. It's the actual player. The player's vector only has AI in it, not the actual player. So you have to add that times 5. Actually, no, times plus 2 because we have to include the dealer. The dealer is also part of the game. So 5. So in other words, if there are 5 players, that's 7, and so there has to be at least 35 cards in the deck. Normally you're not going to go through that many. Maybe 3 to 4 cards max. Usually, 4 is actually pretty high. 3 is usually what it boils down to, but sometimes not. So I guess that's why they have multiple decks. We may want to do multiple decks. That's going to be interesting trying to... Well, let's do this. I'll put a to do here. To do. Figure out a way to use multiple decks. And we'll just leave that there. And then that'll be something I'll probably work on in versions 0.6. Okay, so players.size plus 2 times 5. So if it's less, then we need to recreate the deck. So we need to call the setup cards function. Get to 5 cards. Set up a new deck. Alright, so now we need to remove the cards from the deck. So that would be using the erase function. And I believe how we do that is we say scp hand dot erase. So then we're going to go scp hand dot begin plus rint1. Now, what we need to take into consideration with this is the fact that when we do the next one, it's actually going to be one less because we've already taken one out. So, here's the thing. There's another problem though. If the number is above if rint1 is larger than rint2, then nothing will have changed. Huh. Tricky. If rint1 is larger than rint2, then no change to the value of rint2 needs to be made. However, if the reverse is true, then 1 has to be subtracted. So, if rint1 is less than rint2, then rint2 minus 1 minus equals 1. Else, and then that'll only happen if that's true, and then we don't have to do an else. We just go right down and do the erase. So, either this is true and then we subtract 1 from 2 to make it work, or it's not true and we don't need to do it. So, and either way, you can just use the same actual erase command to do it. You just have to, because this will hit, if this is true, this will hit and it'll be correct. If it's not true, it won't hit and it'll still be correct. So we just go scp hand Alright, now and in this case the dealer is going to be an AI as well. So we'll have to add in another one. So the way this is going to work is that no matter what, the player is going to be first. And then the dealer will be last. That's not really how it's done in actual blackjack, but that's how it's going to be done in this one. In the full version of the game, or maybe even the next version, I'll probably do something that'll say, okay, well, if we'll do like a value or something, I'll be able to say who's first and whatnot. But for the moment, it's just going to be the player, AI, and then the dealer. And then you can decide what to do after that. So now, same for the AI and dealer. Now for this, we want to do, we want to add the dealer first of all now. And to do that, let's see what we'll just call it dealer. We don't have to do the random name thing like we do. I think we're going the wrong direction now. Yeah. I want to go up, not down. So players, players.pushback casino AI. So essentially we can just take this. Let's go. Let me reopen the. Must have closed. Oh, that's right, I restarted. So of course it's closed. I opened it twice. What the hell? Well, if I restart it, I'm not gonna have all that stuff there anyway. So never mind. Not needed. Like I said, because if you remember earlier, I copied and pasted a bunch of the empty message insert lines and had deleted them out of the thing so I could add in the other ones. And I was going to keep those and reuse those, but since we restarted, I'm just kind of screw that now. So, we essentially just need this. But first, add the dealer to the player's vector. So essentially do this. Name will just be dealer. Since that's what it is. Now we will do for loop. For I equals 0, I is less than players.size, which will include the dealer now, I plus plus. And we go through and do the same thing for the AI. Now, so we have a vector of strings. And the way we'll just do the indexes for who is first one out, because what happens is when you add a new index, it's added to the back. So the index from the player vector will match up with the index from the outer vector, while the inner vector will have the hands. So it's going to be kind of a little complicated to deal with, but it shouldn't be too hard. Now that I'm used to actually working with it in this kind of fashion. So we need, first of all, we've already checked the deck, so we don't need to do that. We do need to punch back. That's a typo. Push back. So we need to copy this. Well, let's copy the entire thing here, because we have to also remove them as well. In this case, what we'll do is well, that's interesting. Let's add the dealer up here up top. Let's add this here. But let's take this. And we'll add this up here underneath. So set up AI, add dealer. Set up card deck. Alright. Okay, let's see, to the player. So here's the thing though, this is going to have to be different. This is going to have to be the size of the deck. It can't be 51 because it's not going to be a static number. You got to think about these kind of things. So it's going to be scdv10 size for the upper range of the random range that you're going to be searching. Okay. Now this is where it has to start being different here. First of all, we have to insert a string vector. I believe we have a temporary vector I was using to do so. Temp SSTR, yeah. So we'll use that. So what's the vector for AI hands? SCAI hands. Well, of course, that's what it is. SCAI hands dot pushback. Well, first we gotta make sure it's empty, so. So first now we have to add a hand for the AI to the vector. So SAI hands dot pushback, and then we have to add the temp string vector. So that adds a string vector into the vector. Now the way that we access this is by using the brackets. So yeah, it acts like you're using an array, in other words. So in order to do this, we would do this. SCAI hands. Now what we'll do is we'll use the size of SCAI hands for this. -1. So SCAI hands dot size -1. So that we get the so the size will be 1, but we'll take 1 off for 0 and we'll get the proper element. In the case of if this was the first element added. If it was the second, it would be 2 minus 1, which would be 1, and it would be correct. So it's 0 indexed. So SCAI hands dot size -1 dot pushback, then you put that in. So now we're pushing back into the string array, which is inside of the vector, or string vector, which is inside of the vector, outer vector. So you can look at it as we're pushing back into temp SSTR, essentially. So then we do the same for the bottom one here. Just add that in as well. Same process that we have to I'm using the wrong one here. What an idiot. It should be scdv10. Again, there's somebody looking at watching the video saying, "No, you idiot, it should be scdv10, not friggin' the hands or whatever." Alright, now this is where we're gonna use the third one. So while b continue 3, which we're going to set to true right here. And then we're going to do essentially what we usually do in this case is do a call to the menu and then have the menu operate within this. So p choice that function over here. So scdv10. mpg.scmbjbet, and we need to pass through scp hand. I'm just glad I don't have to do this for the vector of vectors, as that would really get messy over here. So, now here's where we have to do a couple interesting things. Well, you see, the fact is, though, the matter is we might have to do that for the player too, because the player can have two hands. So maybe we'll make a second, just single vector for it, in case of a split. Let me make that note over here. Of course, preferred is wrong. There. All right. So what we'll do is, if the player has two hands, then we'll have him do this twice. Of course, that'll also be interesting to figure out. Anyway, so int msgproc sc mbet vector of string cards. Alright, so now if I got to figure out another way to do this, though. Yeah, we'll probably have to do a vector of vectors. It just makes things so much easier over on this side. But at the same time, it's also going to be, I don't know, we'll have to figure it out. We're going to assume that the player's not going to be getting them any kind of split opportunities for most of the time, and then we'll go back through and figure out how to do splits. So if you have, in other words, if it's 1, then actually it should be 2, because the size is not 0 indexed. Alright, so we'll use that to add in some extra options. First, count mr message 1. One of those times where you have to use valid returns and whatnot. let's also print out the cards to count. Then we say, and we're going to go ahead and also do the calculation here as well. So let's go to, let's see. I'm wondering if we have... Doesn't sound like a string stream here yet, so we'll probably have to use that. Well, we'll need that, but we'll also need something else. It's in the name generation. Also gonna restart the recording real quick here.